Right now, if you cut your hand, you probably wash it, put on a bandage, and forget about it a few days later. If you wake up with a fever, you reach for medicine. If your tooth starts hurting, you book a dentist appointment. Most of us have never had to wonder whether a small injury might be the last mistake we ever make. Now take all of that away. No hospitals, no antibiotics, no painkillers, no doctors, no pharmacies. Just your own body and a world filled with sharp stone tools. Dangerous animals, infected wounds, broken bones, and diseases nobody understood. That wasn't a temporary crisis. For hundreds of thousands of years, that was simply life. And somehow your ancestors survived it. Every person alive today comes from an unbroken line of people who lived long enough to recover from sickness, heal from injuries, and raise children before modern medicine ever existed. So how did they do it? How did humans survive in a world where even a small cut could become a death sentence? That's what we're going to find out. Ancient humans faced danger everywhere they turned. A small cut from a sharp stone could become a fatal infection within weeks, and broken bones meant sudden helplessness with no casts, no x-rays, and no ambulances to rely on. Every hunt against mammoths, wild horses, giant bison, cave lions, wolves, and bears carried the risk of being kicked, crushed, bitten, or gored, and even ordinary daily life added its own dangers: burns from open fires, cuts from razor-sharp stone blades, strained muscles from carrying heavy meat, and skin cracked raw by cold weather. Invisible diseases struck without warning. An infected tooth could spread through the jaw. Asthmatic illness could leave a person too weak to stand, and childbirth remained one of the greatest gambles of all, with no surgeon, no blood transfusion, and no emergency care available. Looking at all of this together, survival for a thin-skinned, fragile-boned species with no claws, no thick fur, and no medicine seems almost impossible on paper. Yet appearances were deceiving, because while other animals relied on raw strength or instinct, humans developed something far more valuable: the ability to observe, to remember, and to learn from every generation that came before. And that single advantage changed everything. The earliest medicines were never made in laboratories or bottled into tablets. They grew directly from the ground, and long before anyone understood germs, ancient humans noticed that certain plants eased pain, helped wounds heal faster, settled upset stomachs, or proved deadly if used the wrong way. They learned this by watching, observing injured animals chew certain leaves, noticing which roots helped after spoiled meals, and remembering which berries caused sickness versus recovery, until every success and every mistake became a lesson passed down around the campfire. Archaeologists have found evidence that ancient humans deliberately collected certain plants offering little nutritional value but likely medicinal properties, showing they were searching for medicine as much as for food. Willow bark stands out as a famous example, since it contains salicin, the natural compound that would eventually inspire aspirin thousands of years later. Discovered purely through observation long before anyone understood the chemistry behind it. Different landscapes offered entirely different natural pharmacies. Forest dwellers relied on bark and mushrooms, grassland groups searched for flowering plants and roots, and river communities gathered reeds and mosses for wound care. But healing wasn't only about swallowing something. Sometimes the greatest medicine was simply time, since a badly injured person needed weeks of rest, clean wounds, warmth, and protection, which meant the rest of the group had to share food and carry extra work so that person could recover, and one day hunt, gather, and teach again. Fire did far more than provide warmth. Heated water seemed to prevent sickness, hot stone blades could cut away damaged flesh or cauterize wounds, and fire-dried materials made cleaner. Longer-lasting bandages, while smoke helped keep disease-carrying insects away from camp. Fire-hardened wooden splints helped broken bones heal properly, and archaeologists have found skeletons with severe fractures that healed completely, proof that injured people were carried, fed, and protected by their communities rather than abandoned. This compassion was itself a survival tool, since every hunter, elder, or mother who recovered could keep contributing knowledge and strength to the group, making fire and kindness together far more powerful than either alone. With no anesthesia, ancient humans endured pain that modern people rarely have to face, from pulling teeth to setting broken bones while fully awake. But they found partial relief through numbing leaves, calming roots, soothing tree resins, and the therapeutic use of heat and cold that people still rely on today. Choosing to let an injured hunter rest was a real sacrifice for the whole group, yet it reflected an understanding that a healed hunter or a knowledge-rich elder was worth far more long-term than the short-term loss of their labor. Emotional pain mattered too, and campfire storytelling, singing, and ritual functioned as humanity's first form of therapy, easing fear and building connection long before psychology existed as a field. The deadliest threats were the ones ancient humans could not see: bacteria that turned a healed wound into a swollen, feverish, life-threatening infection days later. Without understanding germs, people learned through pattern and experience which habits worked: keeping wounds dry with moss, sealing cuts with sticky pine resin, using honey's natural antibacterial properties, driving away insects with smoke, and keeping camps clean of waste and rotting food. These practices were imperfect, and people still died from infections that are easily treated today, but every lesson learned was passed from parents to children and hunters to grandchildren, making shared knowledge itself into one of humanity's greatest medicines. Skeletal evidence shows ancient humans with severe injuries, broken legs, crushed arms that healed completely, proving survival depended not on individual strength but on communities refusing to leave the injured behind. Elders were treasured as living library of experience about rivers, seasons, and healing plants, while children were raised through cooperative care from parents, grandparents, and the wider group, and knowledge about hunting, healing, and survival was freely shared rather than hoarded because a stronger group meant a better chance for everyone. This spirit of cooperation, expressed through shared stories, songs, and legends that carried practical lessons, became humanity's greatest invention, more powerful than any single weapon or tool, and it carried our ancestors through ice ages, famines, and disease. Unlike other animals that had to evolve slowly to survive changing conditions, humans instead changed their environment to suit themselves, making warmer clothing instead of growing fur, building shelters instead of searching for caves, and inventing better tools like spears, fishing hooks, and harpoons to solve problems as they arose. Each invention created new opportunities. Better hunts meant more food meant healthier children, and larger communities meant faster sharing of ideas, creating a chain reaction of progress that no single generation had to start from scratch, since knowledge itself was inherited like a second form of DNA. Over time, humanity shifted from simply trying to survive nature to gradually learning to understand and reshape it, not through one great invention, but through countless small ones passed forward. As communities grew and knowledge of migration routes, water sources, and seasonal plants became more reliable, humans made one of history's greatest leaps, learning to deliberately grow food and raise animals instead of only searching for them, which allowed permanent villages to replace temporary camps and eventually grow into towns and cities. The same knowledge that once lived only in memory began to survive independently of any one person through symbols and eventually writing, meaning healers, hunters, and elders no longer had to personally teach every lesson to every child. This chain, from curiosity about healing plants to careful observation to cooperative caregiving, laid the direct ancestral foundation for modern medicine, science, engineering, and hospitals, proving that human progress was built slowly around small fires, rather than appearing suddenly in laboratories. Every bandage, painkiller, and doctor's visit available today stands on top of hundreds of thousands of years during which none of those things existed, and ordinary ancestors survived broken bones, infections, and childbirth using nothing but nature, experience, and each other. Some failed and many did not survive, but enough people learned and passed their knowledge forward that humanity endured, not because it was the strongest species on Earth, but because it learned, adapted, and cared for one another. The real story of medicine is not one of kings or battles, but of quiet acts: a parent tending a sick child, a friend refusing to abandon an injured hunter, an elder teaching which plant eases a fever, and every hospital, vaccine, and life saved today is simply the latest chapter of a story that began around a simple campfire.